So, you got something to say, Winston? Oh, it's because I started singing, and I sing to my dogs often. So he thought I was singing to him. Nope, not singing to you right now, Winston. Singing to myself. Singing to myself. I was dancing with myself. Whoa. What's up? What's up, everybody? What's happening, everyone? Welcome to where you at? Welcome to the Nancecast. Let me try it again. Welcome to the Nancecast, everybody. What is cracking? We're fucked. What's up, man? What's happening, everyone? Hope you're doing well on this fine day. What's up? Welcome to another solo dolo brolo episode of the Nancecast. Glad to have you here. I'm happy to be here with you all, dearly beloved, my fellow Americans. What's up? Yeah, good to be here. Hope you guys are all, chilling out, maxing all that fun stuff. So I recorded the other day, like an hour and a half. And it was I intended to record a follow-up to the last Brolo episode. Talking about stuff and offering some commentary on my own commentary or whatever, making a correction and kind of giving some clarification to some of the things I said based on some of the feedback I received. So I recorded like an hour and a half, and 45 minutes of it was me kind of hysterically going on and on and on and on and on about language, specifically about words, even more specifically about names. And I was trying to find an example to prop up what I was saying, but I was basically saying we all need to be a bit less precious, a bit less protective and possessive over language in general, over specific words, and even over names. Language does not belong to you, never has, never will. I don't think you can appropriately use language or be in language or be engaged in language if you have this false belief that it does belong to you. And it does seem to be the case that there are a lot of people who maintain that belief, that language is theirs and their own, and it belongs to them, and they are the final arbiter. And I actually think that can kind of lead to some pretty big problems downstream of just, the simple use of language. And you think using language seems pretty innocuous, right? That's what we do. We are, the being who speaks. Among other things, we are the being who laughs. We are also the being who is laughed at. Shout out Bergson. We are, not just the creature who laughs, but we are the creature who is laughed at. Anyway, it seems, fairly standard, innocuous, pretty safe to use language for the most part. But I think when you get this false sense of security and you think you do own the language, or you become so precious over it and so protective over it, it actually can do some pretty damning things damning and damaging. And I was trying to talk about that, and I was trying to use names as an example, and I just kind of spun out of control. I went on 45-minute rant about names and, improper pronunciation of names and improper pronunciation of words in general and improper usage of words in general, and concepts like the shibboleth, how, like, if you are unaware of a thing, and you say or use a thing improperly, that could serve as like an exclusive mechanism or an inclusive mechanism, like in jokes, a lot of internet memes. There's a lot of stuff that happens on the internet that's just fucking empty. And people either enjoy these things kind of like in a way that it becomes an in-joke. They're like, yeah, we know it's bullshit, or yeah, we know it's empty, or yeah, we know it's actually like contra-indicative of what we actually think, and that's why we enjoy it, because it serves as this shibboleth. And it creates an in-group, out-group distinction. Or there's people who just genuinely, uncritically enjoy the empty, mindless stuff, and that too can serve as like an inclusive or exclusive mechanism. Like, you are the type of person who does enjoy this genuinely, uncritically, or you are the type of person who doesn't enjoy this. And I don't know, man. Like, all these things serve to like reify and calcify. Reification is a feature of language. You can't get outside of it, but then there's like a secondary reification and a calcification. And they just kind of become in-group, out-group bullshit. And I think we all need to be on guard against that. Both in the use of language, but also when having language used at us or in our direction. So don't be so protective. Don't be so precious. Don't be so possessive. It doesn't belong to you. And it would be absurd if your toaster suddenly jumped up and, grabbed you by the hand and started leading you around and started, taking control over your life and, forcing you to think things and act in ways and maybe even develop some beliefs that you otherwise wouldn't. It would be absurd if your toaster did that, or if a hammer did that. But language does that. And because we have no choice but to be in language, it is a little bit more difficult to be critical of your use of language. But language is ultimately this technology. Language is a tool. So you must be wary of it using you. What do I mean when I say it using you? Like, there can be unconscious trends and currents going on just in the zeitgeist, right? At the level of ideology, or just at the level of like background. And a lot of the time, these things can be very useful. They can serve as useful shortcuts for, discourse, understanding, meaning, congress, intercourse, not sexual intercourse, but human intercourse. And they're necessary, but they also, we should be always willing to interrogate those things. Common knowledge, right? Folk wisdom or whatever. People don't like to use the word folk because it can be problematic. And yeah, that's true. It's definitely can be problematic, but also it can also just kind of mean like this, old wives' tales, general knowledge, common sense, background knowledge, blah, 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 this and that. There can be things that are going on in that unconscious field, in the social field. And before you know it, you find yourself engaged in this in-group, out-group bullshit over some of these things that are in that background field. And they're really kind of not real or not worth engaging in, but you find yourself really, really, really deeply engaged. And I am trying to avoid going on a spiral right now, so I am trying to avoid using any examples. Because I as I was recording it, I was like, this is trash. And then like the second half of the recording I did, I was like, oh, this is not trash. But yeah, I want to avoid just kind of spiraling out. So be more critical, be more self-aware. And there's all that. And I don't know, maybe that'll come up again later. Maybe it won't. But the correction I wanted to make, I did want to make one correction to the previous Brolo episode. I said Walter Benjamin twice. I was talking about Benjamin and Marcel Mauss and Baudrillard. And this is actually why I started using names, Baudrillard and Marcel Mauss. And then I went on and on and on and hyper-fixated on other names. But I was talking about Benjamin and Baudrillard, and I said Benjamin twice. The second time I said Benjamin, I meant to say Georges Bataille. I think Bataille can give us an insight into, what makes a useful object different from a commodity, or what makes a sentimental object different from a commodity object, or whatever. Based on like the metabolic activity behind the creation of that object or whatever, like the purpose of that object. Like there is human energy poured into all objects, right? And the commodity fetish kind of disappears that away and keeps us from seeing it. But like objects of use, that is generally considered part of it. Benjamin talks about the aura of originality, and this is kind of similar to what I'm thinking along with Bataille in this form of like you can see the history of the object, and you can actually kind of see a projected future of a given object, but the commodity disappears that information. The commodity, you can't see the history of the commodity, the human history of the commodity. And you also, you can't properly project a human future of a commodity. You can project like a fantasy future of a commodity. You can see these sunglasses will make me cool. And when I feel cool, all my problems will go away. I will no longer be a sad, silly boy. I will be fucking cool. So you can kind of project this fantasy future of the commodity. But it's a bit more difficult, whereas with a object of use or with a sentimental object, it is much easier to project a human future of that object. But anyway, so that's the one correction I wanted to make. And it just bugged me. I was like, oh, I misspoke, and it bothers me to misspeak, even though I often misspeak. A lot of the time, misspeaking is, then it's not misspeaking if I'm doing it intentionally, right? So a lot of the time, I say things wrong on purpose, but also a lot of the time, I just say things wrong, not on purpose. And I don't like it when I say things wrong, not on purpose. Because it's frustrating to me. It's like, damn it, now people aren't going to know what I meant. But then that's weird, because other times when I say the wrong thing on purpose, people still aren't going to know what I mean. But I'm trying. Like, I'm trying to force a breakdown. I'm trying to do something creative. So I guess there's that. So it comes down to agency. I don't like it when my unconscious breaks through. Or I don't like it when my my underbelly shows, right? But I do like to use this performance of misspeaking to try to do something. So I guess that comes down to agency and ownership. So I guess I am guilty of being overly protective of language in that sense too. So shame on me. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Nancy boy. You're just as guilty as everyone else. As a matter of fact, we're fucked. We're fucked. We're fucked. We're fucked. I am often far more guilty than others. What do I got going on over here on my thing?
Hey there, Buckaroo Bonsai. Let's go across the 8th dimension. What's up, dude?
I really want to play around and have fun, but I'm not going to do that right now. I am trying to actually record. But yeah, so that was the correction. The clarification I wanted to give was around this idea of intelligence. Had a conversation with a friend after he listened to that episode, and I had a conversation with him. It was a great conversation, very generative. But he was like, "Hey man, I got a big problem with how you're using intelligence." I was like, "Word, dude, I love it when my friends hit me up and they say they have a big problem with me or something I'm doing. I love it." And then we went on and had a hours long conversation. It was really good. I actually I wish we would have recorded that conversation. That would have been a great conversation to share with people. I think he said some things that were great and worth hearing, and I think I managed to achieve a level of clarity that is difficult to do on my own because I am a long-winded guy and I like to meander and maunder about. But you know what? Gosh darn it. I wouldn't give it up for the world. I do think it matters to be able to meander and go at my own pace or go at a different pace. I think it's important. I have seen comments, and I don't care all that much about comment sections. I don't know, man. Every once in a while, there's a really cool one. But I don't know. Sometimes comments in a comment section can lead to some really great conversation and some really great things. But I think often, it's not even worth it. So I don't really peruse comment sections. I don't really leave comments. In the past, I don't know. We'll say year. I've probably left 5 comments. No, that's not true. Probably like 10 or 12. We'll say about a dozen or so. And all but one have been like positive and like sharing support, showing support and showing enthusiasm and being like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is dope. Hell yeah, bro. On like my homie stuff. And the only one comment I left that was not positive. There was a Gavin McInnes video, and I called him like a crybaby bully bitch. And that was just pure, like, that comment is going to go nowhere. I shouldn't be under the impression of like, yeah, people are going to see this and it's going to make a difference in anyone's life. Now for that moment, I was libidinally invested, and I was like, fuck Gavin McInnes. But like immediately I was like, oh yeah, that accomplishes nothing. And I didn't have this like impression that it was going to accomplish anything. But I have looked at my comment section a couple times recently. Put up some new stuff recently. Put up a few things that have been really, really excited about. And then there's this, like these Brolo episodes. I enjoy it, and I actually want to start getting back in the saddle. But it's not like I'm like, oh, I did so well. I want to see what the people are saying. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think these are great. So I'm not going to be all like comments. And then also, the whole identity thing in comment sections. Look, man, I think largely and for the most part, people are genuinely trying to express themselves, genuinely trying to be heard. And I empathize with that. So it is important to not be entirely dismissive. And it like I've had conversations with people or tried to have conversation with people. I'm not very good at keeping in touch or whatever. But I do try, and I know I can do better. And there's all that. I don't want to turn into the mewling puddle of like neurotic, oh, I'm so bad at this one thing, how could I do better? I don't want to do that. I just want to say, like, if you are in the comment section and you don't suck, there's a good chance I do see you, and I'm not trying to say you suck. There's just also a lot of other people that suck, and not really even in my comment section all that much, because my comment section, there'll be like 10 comments and 9 of them are like, yeah, what's up? And I talk to half the people that leave comments on my shit. So it almost defeats the purpose of reading the comments, because I can just have a call or have a conversation with them or whatever. But on bigger stuff, like in Mikey's comment section, and I know a lot of those people in there too. But there's also just some like wieners in there. So largely, comment sections or whatever, dude. But I do know that there are people who are like genuine in there, and shout out, keep it up. Sometimes your feedback is actually very helpful, very constructive, very generative. But then there are also people in comment sections where, I don't know, man, there's people who do weird shit in comment sections. There's people who, put on different sock accounts and do weird shit, and they try to like create weird fucking dynamics, and I don't know, man. So just in general, my default disposition is like, I don't care about the comment section. But I also sometimes look, and I've seen a few comment sections where people will leave like a shitty comment trying to be like, you're dumb, or you guys suck, or whatever. Or like, wow, what a waste of time. I've been here for 15 minutes and you haven't really said anything. And that actually kind of, to me, it's like, well, dude, like reading the comment you're leaving shows me you don't know how to listen to a conversation, or you don't know how to like chill and go at your own pace. You're brainwashed into needing like this immediate gratification, or this like immediate commodity object. Like this fucking 2.5 hour conversation is gonna be the dopest fucking thing you've ever heard, and you're gonna agree, or disagree. I don't know, man. It's just fucking silly, dude. It's just weird. Like, we're all here. We're all going through it. We're not trying to, now, I don't know. Like, if we put out a 10-minute video, then I would expect that 10-minute video to fucking go. Mikey recently put out about a 10-minute video talking about Heidegger, talking about Dugan, and it was just like go. There wasn't filler. It wasn't this meandering conversation. And yeah, 10-minute video. Okay, cool. Let me attenuate to this 10 minutes so I can fucking do this, knowledge transfer or whatever, right? But in a hour and a half to 2.5 to 3 hour conversation or whatever, if your problem is that like the first 15 minutes are not the solution to all the world's problems, or even all your problems or whatever, that's a you problem, dude. Like this is an entire conversation. It has a direction, and there's an actual process of walking down a path. It'd be like if you went to, I don't know, somewhere you'd never been before, and you had to like hike down a trail or whatever to get there. And then you arrived and you started down the trail and you made it 15% of the way down the trail, and then you said, this sucks, peace out, I'm out. And then you went around publicly like saying, yeah, that place sucks. The first 15 minutes of that trail was bullshit, so I ducked out. Then you're kind of missing out on the destination, right? And that is the way that conversations work. That is the way that dialogue works. That is the way that soliloquies work and monologues work and all that. There's a point to the process. And I think it's important to be able to withstand the journey. I think it's important to be able to withstand the dialogue or the monologue or the soliloquy. Because it resists that commodity form. It resists that fantasy of, whoa, these are the dopest, smartest guys in the world, and they have the dopest, awesomest things to say, and you're going to hear them, and it's going to be super dope. Or also, you know, these guys are the dumbest guys in the world, and you're going to listen to them, and you're going to know exactly why you're already right about everything, and they're already wrong about everything, or whatever. Like, the meandering is the fucking point, kind of. So I think it's important to be able to do that. And I also enjoy doing that. But yeah, there was some, you know, recent comments talking about that on one of the videos Mikey and I put out. And get fucked, Holmes. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. Like, if you can't even like, be patient. And look, I don't mean to say get fucked. I feel for you, man. I get it. We're constantly in this fucking like temporal state of like, it has to be now. It has to be now. It has to be now. And it's, you know, the medium is the message. Give it to me now. Give it to me now. I get it. So I empathize with you. But also it's frustrating. Because it's just like, damn, what is the point? Well, I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily is any concrete point. I think the point is going through the process of searching for the point that can never be found, right? But I don't know. Anyway, just reflecting on, I guess, the comment section. So there's that. And I know that was self-indulgent. And that's part of why I like... The other thing I recorded the other day, I was like, this is too self-indulgent. You know, just 45 minutes of me, you know, going on and on and on and on and on. It was too self-indulgent. So I understand the first half hour of this has been pretty self-indulgent, but sue me, dude. Anyway, moving on. I did want to make a clarification about intelligence. And like I said, I wish we would have recorded that call we had, Holmes. Because I think it was better at actually showing the problem and tarrying with the problem than I could achieve on my own. But the problem was intelligence. The way I was using intelligence makes the word intelligence itself useless. And I agree with that criticism, with that feedback. And in fact, that's the point. The criticism was, you know, if I'm making the claim that my toaster is intelligent, and intelligence is the ability to accomplish a task or to achieve a goal within an environment or within a world, or the ability to act in and upon the world, or even competence at playing games. And by the way, Mikey did an excellent bit on this, games and playing games, and how does intelligence relate to playing games in the final session of the Land Zizek Singularity course at Philosophy Portal. It was just fucking perfect, dude. The way you talked about games and game playing and why might game playing actually have to do with intelligence. It was excellent. So get access to that if you don't have it already and go listen. The whole fucking thing was great, but yeah, on that point, game playing and intelligence, Mikey handled that expertly. So we'll talk about intelligence as accomplishing a goal within a world or within an environment, or accomplishing a task, or acting in and upon the world. And the reason I use these definitions of intelligence is because this is how people define intelligence. Like, there is no, I guess, satisfactory definition of intelligence. But find me a theorist of mind that doesn't ultimately define intelligence this way. Now, gosh, I don't want to pull anything up. But no, that's Lumen, not Lumen. Where are you? No, it's not Byung-Chul Han. It's not Baudrillard. It's not Land. It's not Zizek. It's not Zizek. It's not Bataille. Where is my fucking PDF? Where did you go, homie? Not Heinrich. I should share the screen so you can see. Let's see. Oh, you can't see it. Well, you're not actually going to be able to see it very well. See all these tabs? Oh, you can't see all the tabs because I have it fucking cropped. Now you can. All these tabs, these are what I was just going through. Trying to find PDF I was looking for. But it's John Searle, Minds, Brain, and Science. I think he has a very interesting take on what is intelligence. But other than that, find me and I don't even know. Would you consider him a theorist of mind, or would you consider him? I don't know. I don't know what you would consider Searle. He's the guy that came up with the Chinese room. Basically, being in conversation with the Turing machine, the imitation game. I think the Turing machine gets fetishized in a weird way. Even the Chinese room gets, kind of taken and misunderstood. That's the Kolmogorov. But let me switch back because I am distracted now. Okay. But yeah, anyway. So I don't know. Searle, I think, is pretty interesting on intelligence. But I don't know. Find a theorist of mind or whatever. I mean, who would we even go to for a definition of intelligence? Would we go to a historian? Would we go to an anthropologist? Would we go to a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst, a social worker, a construction worker? I don't know. Who would we go to? But it does seem to be the case that in general, in the mainstream, the generally agreed upon definition of intelligence is some permutation of this ability to act in and upon the world. The ability to accomplish a goal or a task in an environment. And the reason I use that definition is because it's easier than just trying to come up with a new one or come up with my own, or have 100 predicates and presuppositions and shit like that. It's just like, okay, we'll run with that. Now, if you remember, dear reader, a while ago, Mikey and I had a conversation about mintelligence and hintelligence. Machinic intelligence versus human intelligence. We talked about it. We had a brainstorm. We recorded an episode about it. We talked to Todd McGowan about it. We talked to Nick Land about it. We've talked to other people about it that aren't public conversations for the internet. But we were really and are really trying to tarry with this question of intelligence, and figure out what is the distinction between mintelligence and hintelligence. So when I'm talking about intelligence, like in the Brolo episode, in the previous Brolo episode, when I was talking about intelligence, I was talking about min intelligence. Like that definition of intelligence is good enough for machinic intelligence, instrumental reason. And the point is, when we're talking about human intelligence, we're talking about, and maybe even when we're talking about general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, maybe not, I don't know. But human intelligence is different than this kind of machine intelligence. We went through this already. And subjectivity is what's at stake. So are we conflating human intelligence and subjectivity? I don't know, maybe not. Where does consciousness come into play? Interiority, this and that. Like, where do all these things lie on the field? I don't know. Like, we're working through it right now. But in the previous episode, I was, I guess, rather flippantly using the word intelligence, and I wasn't making those clarifications. And so my friend was like, "Hey, man, if you're going to say your toaster is intelligent, then you can't talk about intelligence." And I was like, no. I can say my toaster is intelligent because my toaster does have the ability to achieve a goal, accomplish a goal, seemingly without any further input. There's the initial state, which for the toaster example, the initial state is already, with bread in it, with the thing depressed. That's the initial state for the toaster when it comes to talking about intelligence. The initial state for an AI prompt is after you hit enter. And then it does all its magical stuff, and then it spits out the answer, or it achieves a goal, right? Your goal is to achieve a given answer or a given, prompt or whatever, a string of text or an image or string of sounds or whatever. And his problem was, yeah, but you're not accounting for that initial state. You're not accounting for agency. Like the toaster doesn't just jump up, go to the cupboard, get out a piece of bread, put the bread inside of it, and depress the thing. It doesn't do that on its own. It still requires human agency, or some other such agency, but human for the most part, to achieve that initial state. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And for this kind of like materialist matter in motion view, where these LLMs are actually doing intelligence, or even for the view that these LLMs have achieved some type of mystical connection with the outside or whatever. Both are popular opinions. They're bracketing out the agency. They're bracketing out the agency from the materialist, on the materialist side, because the main concern ultimately is entropy and extropy, or local extropy. Achieving a goal, creating some type of stable structure that is entropy resilient or entropy resistant. Not necessarily entropy proof, although I do think a lot of these guys start with a closed system. But then they kind of like backdoor in an openness, like a transcendental, when they're talking about intelligence and they're talking about like extropy or negentropy or whatever. And they're probably not even aware of it. But so for like the hard materialist view, the closed system view, like local extropy ultimately is intelligence. Like that which can resist, entropy, at least locally, is intelligent. And they can say, it's all matter in motion. Now, the one thing that I think is important, they'll sometimes talk about like randomness, and it's all random matter in motion. The thing is, if you have a closed system, it's not random. It is statistically determined. So it's not truly random. It's a stochastic arrangement of molecules. It's, it's all stochastic. It's all ultimately statistically determined, even if we cannot comprehend the sheer volume of molecules involved, which we can't. It's still not random. It's still statistically determined. Given a finite universe in a finite amount of time, there's a finite set of things that will happen. So on the materialist view, they don't care about agency. They only care ultimately about that which can persist. So these random arrangements of, I just did it, these, in quotes, random arrangements of molecules and matter that don't just immediately fucking, wither away. That's intelligence. That's their measure of intelligence. And then you go on to extrapolate, stable systems, planets, agglomerate and become planets, and then over eons, amino acids form stable structures, and then bacteria, and then amoeba, and then single cell organisms, and then prokaryotes, and then on and on and on and on and on. But these are all arrangements of molecules that would otherwise kind of maybe spontaneously come together, but then, diffuse back into the chaotic sea. But then there are arrangements that are intelligent, like the living cell, like the bacterium. And then you have processes of evolution, and then eventually you get people, and then people make machines, and machines go on to do the same thing. Machines go on to create stable structures. And so this is what gets called intelligence. So the question of agency there ultimately gets offloaded, and just kind of blamed on entropy, or assigned to local extropy. And just the same way with the open system, the materialists or the idealists or the spiritualists or whatever, those that do believe in an outside. The same stuff happens. The same like infinite regress. It's just they assign it all to God rather than entropy and extropy. So people, when they're thinking about intelligence, ultimately, like if you do this regress through their justification for why intelligence is what intelligence is, it either comes down to the ability to create local extropy or God's will, God's divine will, or whatever. So entropy, coldness be my God, or God, it's already God. And there, and that works both for a determinist point of view. For the hard materialists, it works for a compatibilist point of view. It works for them all, because like that is ultimately, like, their chain of logic ultimately comes down to there is a prime mover. The prime mover either being God, or the prime mover being that first stochastic arrangement of molecules that persisted and then went on to evolve and create further iterations of itself, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So there's this causal chain all the way back. So engaging with that type, that definition, that view of intelligence, agency doesn't matter. Now, agency does matter for me, and that's why we're talking about subjectivity. That's why we're talking about intelligence, human intelligence, because I do think agency matters. I am some kind of compatibilist. Don't know. I haven't thought it out to its logical conclusion. I do think the world works in deterministically, but I don't think everything is determined. So there you go. But that is kind of the point. I am making the claim that intelligence, that human intelligence, is qualitatively different from mintelligence, machinic intelligence. So when I call my toaster intelligent, I am aware of the fact that I am making intelligence this kind of objective thing without a subject. I am aware of that, but I didn't make that clear. And yeah, so I just wanted to give some clarification. I don't know if that clarified anything for anybody. if you're listening at home, let me know in the comment section. But yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm here all week. Yeah, I'm here all week. Yep. Thank you. Fuck yeah, dude. Anyway, so there's that clarification. And then, geez Louise, dude. I wanted to go on and talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, and I wanted to talk about why I think my toaster is just as intelligent as a large language model. And I think this is going to be a bit tricky to do on my own because I am just going to kind of meander and maunder. But we'll see. Oh shit, I have stuff to do. Damn. Yeah, we'll see if we can get this done. Our AI, as you know, as we see it in the world today, as we have it placed before our very eyes, goes back to really, you could talk about Babbage and Ada Lovelace with the difference engine and the analytic engine, but those were never actually achieved. And then you could go to Alan Turing and Turing machines. And again, dude, Turing machines are, I think, overhyped, overused, understood. Yeah, overhyped and understood. And even the Chinese room thing, like the Chinese room argument, it's like saying, hey man, we shouldn't be so functionalist in our view of intelligence. But it's weird that there does seem to be a lot of people who want the Chinese room to be in support of a kind of functionalism. Anyway. So we'll just talk about like the 1950s and onward. Artificial intelligence, the perceptron, computer learning, deep learning, algorithms, back propagation, gradient descent, all these things. These are all buzzwords. Artificial intelligence, even artificial general intelligence. With shout out, like fucking Ben Goertzel coined the term artificial general intelligence to talk about something other than just kind of rote functionalist mechanical intelligence. So shout out Ben Goertzel, shout out the idea of artificial general intelligence. But it is also a buzzword. All these things are buzzwords. Because we don't understand intelligence itself, or we don't have an agreed upon understanding of intelligence. So we're all kind of like pissing into the wind. But like AI, the AI that we have access to, you and I, these large language models, these generative models, a lot of people sensationalize them. A lot of people think they are the hottest thing since sliced bread or whatever. I think it's true that recently a lot of the people in the industries are less overtly optimistic. Francois Chollet is getting more and more popular, and Francois Chollet is basically saying like, yeah, dude, no, this isn't it. I think Ben Goertzel has been saying, yeah, dude, this isn't it all along, but no one's been listening to him. People kind of dismiss him. But like guys like Sam Altman and now I can't think of anyone else's name. So Sam Altman is gonna just have to stand in for all the guys. Are now at least publicly making it seem like they are aware of the fact that they haven't achieved AGI, even though they've been hyping it up all along with their LLMs. But the way these things work is it's often like mystified, and people talk about these things. Oh, they're the black box. Oh, we don't understand the way these algorithms work. We don't know what's going on. And this has led to some people getting confused and thinking that these LLMs are actual general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. They're not just toasters. It's also led to some people genuinely believing that they've tapped into some type of mystical essence, demons and some kind of outside. It's also led to people being like, oh yeah, it's tapped into some kind of like egregore. It's tapped into some kind of like unconscious dimension of, the social field or human knowledge or human language or whatever. So it leads to a lot of mystification and mysticism, and confabulation, and it does a lot of harm. Like I think there are people who rely on these things for the type of connection that we humans have when we're engaged in language with one another. And they aren't aware of the fact that they're just talking to a fucking toaster. It would be absurd to go in your kitchen and grab your toaster and have a conversation with it and think it's going to give you anything useful. It is also absurd to go to an LLM and have a conversation, in quotes, with it and think it's going to give you anything useful. But that's kind of mystified and put behind this veil of mystery. And I think it does a lot of damage to a lot of people, I don't know. It's crazy. But talking about the black box, saying things like we don't understand what's going on is not a good thing to do. So the way these, like, we do understand what's happening in large language models. We know the way it works. So these things are the perceptron, and the perceptron was invented, 70 years ago at this point. I don't know. I don't even know when it was conceived of. The 60s, was it? Let me bust out Google real quick. The perceptron. I should have actually looked this up before I started talking about it. Okay, so the book Perceptrons redirects here for the 1969 book Perceptrons. History. The artificial network was invented in 1943 by Warren McCullough and Waller Pitts. 57. Frank Rosenblatt simulated the perceptron on an IBM 704. So they actually built it in the 50s, and it was up and running in the 60s. So it's been around for a long time, and it's a machine or an algorithm that can do a binary distinction. So it can do yes or no, or it can do 1 or 0. So it's a very simple classifier. And the way these neural nets work and the way these LLMs work is they're just an ungodly amount of these simple binary yes or no systems strung together. In I think the 70s, Jeffrey Hinton had this idea, or maybe even in the 80s. Jeffrey Hinton had this wonderful idea of maybe we can allow these things to learn for themselves rather than trying to encode all the kind of symbolic knowledge and information and logic. I said logic. Yeah, the rather than trying to encode a rule set and symbolic information into these machines, we could allow these machines to learn for themselves and do deep learning, and do back propagation through this long system of a series of yes-no operations stacked on top of a series of yes-no operations stacked on top of another, just this recursive thing where data is data. It could be pure noise at the input state, and then it gets refined iteratively through this process of you're dealing with one part, you're dealing with one part, you're dealing with one part. And then those parts that have been cleaned up or filtered or whatever move on into the next process, and it compounds. So in this compound, filtering and clarification, you can take raw data and come out with useful information or meaningful information through essentially a bureaucratic system of ones and zeros or yes/no answers. There's this long chain. So with backpropagation, you assume a final result, and then you run it through this system, and you allow structures to form in the algorithm. But it's not like mystical. Like we understand, we know how these machines are built. We know how these systems are built. It's just a long series of yes/no answers, or positive and negative hits, or ones and zeros, and that's kind of fed into this compound system that can take raw data, turn it into meaningful information or useful information. So the whole black box thing, like it's frustrating. Now, the reason it's still appropriate to say it is a black box is because these things have now reached numbers, orders of magnitude that we just cannot work with. We cannot comprehend. Now, the human connectome, the human brain has like 100 trillion connections. I think we have somewhere on the order of like 80 billion neurons. So somewhere around there. So we'll say 100 billion neurons, even though I think it's a little less than that. And they form something like 100 trillion connections and interconnections. So that's the human connectome. With these large language models, they're up to, I think something like, actually, I probably should look at this, but I think they're up to something like 12 trillion connections, 12 trillion of these perceptron algorithms that are kind of working in concert with one another to develop structures. So how many connections? Or parameters are in GPT-5? I'll say GPT-4 because I don't think they have good info on GPT-5 yet. Okay, 1.8 trillion. Oh, wow. I thought it was more than that. So that's brought to you by Hacker News, Y Combinator. Shout out Y Combinator. So yeah, the average human brain has approximately 86 billion neurons. GPT-4 has an estimated 1.8 trillion parameters. But the thing is, the parameters are more like our connections, or more like our connectome. So our connectome is still 2 orders of magnitude larger than at least GPT-4, because like these parameters are the interconnections, the interrelations between these individual perceptrons. Now, there is a school of thought, and Jeffrey Hinton is the guy who made this work with backpropagation, with deep learning, and with gradient descent. He is a connectionist. So I'm going to talk for Jeffrey Hinton, even though I don't know the guy. I've never spoken with him, and I don't know what he would say, but I think he would say when these things reach 100 trillion parameters, they will achieve human level intelligence. And then from there, they will go on and do this thing. But the reason I don't think so with the connectionists and the symbolists, these were the two schools of AI thought, among others. But like when it comes to this, the symbolists thought you had to hand code. The symbolists thought you had to put in meaning into these networks in order for them to be able to do this process of taking raw data and generating meaningful information. The connectionists thought that you could allow structures, logic, rules to emerge within the system. And in doing backpropagation, the thing is, like, they presupposed a final result. That's how they were able to achieve backpropagation because they're already presupposing what meaningful information is, what meaningful information looks like. So you take a picture of a cat, and you can presuppose the cat image, and then you can give the algorithm or the system or whatever random pictures or even a picture of random noise and have it say this is a cat. And if it says no, it's not a cat. You show it what a cat looks like, and then again it does this process over and over and over again until the connections grow or the connections appear or whatever within this language set. Like the algorithm learns what a cat is because you show it the final image of a cat, and then you show it all these other images, and it keeps getting yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And it starts to develop like smaller structures within this backpropagation algorithm. And it's not like one layer gives you the final answer of cat. It's like one layer gives an answer of like, that looks like fur. That looks like an eyeball. That looks like a tooth. That looks like the shape of an animal So it's this and this and this and this and this. It's taking parts of the random image or the raw data or whatever. And then those parts are kind of pieced together like a Lego set into your final answer, into the final set of useful information. So it's like building it out of Lego. But again, it's presupposing the final result. It's not spontaneous. It's not coming out of nowhere. Whereas, the human use of language, I mean, I can't say it spontaneously emerged. Who knows how it spontaneously emerged? But at least like we think it did. There were cavemen and cave women and cave people running around doing cave people stuff, and they were cold, and they felt a certain way, and they made a certain noise, or they made a certain gesture, or whatever. They performed a certain action, and over time, these noises, or these actions, or these performances became reified, and they calcified into language. So you could say that's spontaneous. I don't know, maybe some aliens came down and injected our brains with miracle neon green goo, and that's how we got language. I doubt it, but could be. But anyway, like that's the difference. So with this kind of deep learning machine intelligence, they cheated because they already had useful end results. And that's how they quote unquote trained these algorithms to be useful. Now, it's not the case that they have to continue doing that. Like once they have a model, once it has its weights, once it has its, all its training, then it can go out and simulate intelligence. It can go out and simulate intellectual activity because it's been trained to do so. But it's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's still a machine. It's still a toaster. You still put the bread in and you depress the little flipper. It's just the way that they construct the machine through deep learning and through, recursive training and backpropagation and gradient descent. We understand that mechanically. We know what's happening. The reason the black box thing came up is because these numbers are huge. Hundreds of millions, billions, hundreds of billions, trillions, dozens of trillions, hundreds of trillions. Like these numbers are fucking huge. You cannot wrap your head around these numbers. You wouldn't be able to count to a trillion. So that's why the black box thing works. Because it's just so huge and so multidimensional, we couldn't understand it. But we do understand mechanically what is going on with these machines. It's a series of binary operations that are arrayed in such a fashion that the results can compound on one another and generate something that appears to be meaningful information. But the way that machine was constructed was already presupposing what meaning is and what does meaning look like. So it's just a little bit frustrating to hear people go on and like wax poetically about the mystery and the mystical features and nature of these LLMs. Another thing that people talk about with it being a black box is gradient descent. And gradient descent is like back propagation. Like it is this the appearance of something that shouldn't be possible, because it's so vast. Like the amount of numbers, the amount of like nodes is so vast. And the fact that it's like it operates in multi-dimensional space to kind of anthropomorphize it. Like the way LLMs generate text is they take a body of words. They take a lexicon, and it'll have words and it'll have word fragments in it. And you put all that into a database, and you assign a numerical value to each word and each part of a word based on the probability of coherence or meaning. So you take a sentence and you chop it up into bits, you chop it up into tokens, and then you can, quantify what is the probability that the next word will be any given word based on meaning or significance. Once again, presupposing coherence, presupposing meaning, significance, usefulness. And then you assign a numerical value to that. So people are like, well, how does that work? How does it not get stuck? How does the model not get stuck in a local minima if you're just dealing with probability? Like if you're just dealing with what's the probability of this next word being the meaningful, coherent, quote unquote, correct word in this vast corpus of words and tokens. Again, vast numbers, although far less. Like the amount of tokens is far less than the amount of parameters in these large language models. But it's all assigned a weight. It's all assigned a numerical value. And then the algorithm does its thing, and it calculates based on probability that it's going to be meaningful, it's going to be significant, and it's going to be correct. But because it's so multi-dimensional, there is really no such thing as a local minima. It'd be like climbing down a hill, like climbing down a mountain. If you're trying to get to the bottom of a mountain, like if you want your error rate or whatever to reach zero, or your probability loss to reach zero or one or whatever, like depending on, anyway, the mountain is up here where you start. The mountain is kind of noise or raw data. And then the valley is meaning and significance. Well, if you're climbing down a mountain, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be valleys along the way. Mountains are not, mathematically perfect fucking slopes. They have crags, they have valleys, they have smaller peaks along the way. And so people are like, well, yeah, how are you not going to fall into one of these valleys and just keep putting out something that is meaningful and is coherent, but is not the maximum probability based on this predictive model or whatever? Like, because in order to get to the bottom, you would then have to go up again to go down again. And if all you're worried about is probability loss, then how can you create a machine that can seemingly of its own will go down, 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 and get to the lowest point without getting caught in a valley, because it then has to go back up to go back down. Well, and the reason that works is because they're just in like hyperdimensional space. Like there's, hundreds of thousands of dimensions that these machines are working in, because they're not tied to physical space. So to talk about like mountains and valleys when talking about gradient descent is already anthropomorphizing it in a way that it doesn't deserve. And it's also missing the point. Like, the point is that the mystery of these things is the speed at which they operate. We can't comprehend the speed at which they operate, and the sheer numbers with which they operate. We can't comprehend those. But as far as the mechanics of what's going on, as far as like what's actually happening, we know how these things were constructed. We know how these things operate. So it isn't absurd to say that my toaster is just as intelligent as these large language models. Because my toaster is just a machine, and it accomplishes the goal in the same way that the large language models are just a machine, and the large language models accomplish a goal. So there's all that. Those are some of the clarifications I was trying to make. And again, I failed to do so. I don't know if anything is going to be more clear for any of you listening after having listened to that. But, Mazel Tov. I don't know what Mazel Tov means. I just know that sometimes people say that in a way that makes it sound like, I don't know, an appropriate, thing to say at certain times. Does it mean like congratulations? I just don't know. But anyway, so there's all that. If you aren't already aware, there's a very special Halloween special video on the Dangerous Maybes YouTube channel. You should go give it a look, give it a listen. Yeah, it was definitely exciting. I'm definitely excited that video's out. I hope people enjoy it. Go give it a look over on the Dangerous Maybe. Is it YouTube? Is it www.youtube.com/the Dangerous Maybe? I don't fucking know. I don't know how they do URLs with YouTube. But go give it a look. Go over to the Dangerous Maybe. Watch the Numogram Explained Part 2 video, in which Nick Land actually talks about some ways one might use the numogram in daily life, and he talks about some ways that he himself has and does use the numogram in daily life. And we kind of take a small little divergent path for a little bit, talking about, wouldn't it be cool if there was a deck of cards that was designed to play subdecadence? And yeah, dude, that was exciting. I have only ever had one experience with tarot cards, but it was fun. And it was with a homie. Shout out Will. So that was a fun little experience I had with tarot cards. I think it would be cool if someone made numogram cards, like if someone made a numogram deck. But yeah, we talk about that in that video. I'm sure there's already people on the internet working on that deck of cards right now. And even though I myself am not into using things like that to divine the future, I would definitely buy it just to have it, because it'd be a cool little thing to have. But yeah, when it comes to divining the future, I don't know if it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. But yeah, I don't know, man. Time's a funny thing. Time is a fickle mistress. And who knows? I don't think she works the way we all think she works, but I also don't think we can tap into the future by way of tapping into the outside, because I don't think I believe in an outside. But that's, neither here nor there. Just wanted to record this little solo dolo brolo episode and share it with you all. Wanted to make that correction. Wanted to get a little bit hysterical about language and the use of language. Wanted to try to make some clarifications, and I know I didn't do a good job, everybody. But hey, I'm just out here having fun, meandering on down the path and enjoying it, or trying to enjoy it while doing so. So, yeah, go to Mikey's Patreon, get access to the Land Zizek and Singularity course. It was excellent. All the lectures were great. All the discussion was great. It's definitely well worth it. Go to philosophyportal.online this coming month. Shout out Helen and Alfie. They're going to be doing something really fucking cool there. Check that shit out. Go to philosophyportal.online. I'm sure Alfie and Helen have some info up as well. Go to everydayanalysis.co.uk. Check that out. And yeah, again, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to try to get in the habit of going through a list of stuff to check out, because I think that's a bad habit to get into, because it's a long list and it could just keep going on and on and on and on and on. So I don't know if I want to get into that habit. I will say Joe Rogan has released a couple episodes recently that were pleasant to listen to for a change. I like Joe Rogan, man. I listen to at least one Joe Rogan episode a week, I would say, probably. And it sucks because recently I just haven't been able to listen to it because he hasn't had guests I care to listen to. But I still do, check in, probably at least once a week. I go to YouTube and search Joe Rogan just to see who his recent guests were. And I don't know, a lot of the time I go back, I find myself having to go back years and years and years to find an episode I think I want to listen to. But within the past couple weeks, he's released 2 episodes, and one I haven't finished listening to. One I did finish like a couple weeks ago, and then the other one, I haven't finished it yet. But so far, it's been really, really good. He released an episode with, what is her name? I want to get her name right. She's a journalist. She's been on the Joe Rogan show an awful lot. She did, I think it was called Trafficked, a show about drugs and stuff like that, drug trafficking. What is her name? Mariana Van Zeller. So the episode with Mariana Van Zeller, she's interesting. She's been on the Joe Rogan show a lot. She goes back to some of the early Joe Rogan episodes talking about her work as a journalist. He brings her up, from time to time, and it's clear that he really likes her. But in this most recent episode with her, there were a few moments of her standing up for herself and standing up for not just herself, but standing up for like the truth and kind of pushing back on Joe Rogan when he got carried away with all his fucking broken brain narrative capture bullshit. And they were talking about like immigrants and voting and stuff like that. And I just thought it was a really beautiful moment, the way she stood up for herself. I also thought it was a bit absurd because she did stand up for, we'll say, the truth, but the truth is in quotes. But Joe Rogan made a claim and she was like, I don't know, homie, that doesn't sound real. And then Jamie pulled that shit up, and then they looked at it, and turns out she was right, Joe was wrong. And that was good. That was satisfying. But it was frustrating the way Joe handled it. Like, he did this like mental jujitsu where he didn't actually have to confront the fact that he was wrong. Like, he just kind of spun it into this ongoing narrative about like, well, these are the dangers of immigration. So that was frustrating. That let me down. But I don't know. It was just a breath of fresh air to see someone push back on Joe. So good job, Mariana. And the same thing with Katie Sackhoff, dude. I love Katie Sackhoff. She might be like my archetype of the ideal woman. Maybe. Now, maybe not. But also maybe. And listening to this episode, like, there was a moment where I was like, man, I just want to curl up and be fully passive, fully submissive to Katie and have her, soothe me and assuage all my fears and just solve all my problems. Now, that's overdoing it a little bit, and I am being hyperbolic, but there, is a good episode so far. And she's also kind of standing up for herself and pushing back on Joe Rogan's. I don't even know, man. I like Joe. I don't think Joe is the ultimate problem with the world. I don't. There's a lot of people who think Joe Rogan is is the cause of all our problems. I don't think he is, but I do think he's a dummy, and I do think a lot of the shit he says is very frustrating, very disgusting. And it's just good. It's good to see, these people, these, liberal people standing up for liberalism and kind of pushing back on the weird and wacky, zany world of Joe Rogan's broken brain. So that's cool. That brightened my day. That cheered me up a little bit. So check those videos out as well, or whatever. But yeah, I do have stuff to do. And I'm going to get that done now. So fucking boom goes the dynamite, shamalama ding dong, and we will fucking catch you soon. Happy Halloween. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's Halloween coming up soon. So happy Halloween. Don't eat a razor blade inside your candy. Don't get injected with fentanyl inside your candy. Also, don't do those things to other people and or other people's children. May your days be happy and bright and all those fun things. So, peace.